Hi, in today's video we're going to discuss patient brokering, fee splitting, and kickbacks. I'm Michael H. Cohen, founding attorney of Cohen Healthcare Law Group. We help healthcare industry clients just like you navigate healthcare and FDA legal issues so you can launch or keep scaling your health and wellness product or service. Recently, we got a call from a physician who refers patients to multiple rehab centers. In the course of our legal consultation, the doctor wanted to know whether he could receive any fees in exchange for that referral. The classic answer is, of course, you cannot receive fees in exchange for referring patients. Naturally, we come across all sorts of creative arrangements, and we think about them with considerable creativity and finesse. We don't give a blanket no every time. Sometimes we do come up with compensation arrangements that can push the envelope. With the anti-kickback law, there are safe harbors, and whether there's a violation is a fact and circumstances-based analysis. So it's hardly black and white each and every time. The general rule, though, is that healthcare providers can only be compensated for their professional services when they're rendering professional services and not for making referrals. The law prohibits any inducement or incentive to refer. So classically, an inducement is the referral. Another way to put this is that the healthcare provider can't split the professional fee with the non-professional, which means they can neither give nor receive any money in exchange for receiving or giving a patient referral, respectively. In all my years representing clients, I've had only one client really press for a way around the prohibition. This client pressed and prodded and pushed and insisted that our firm had a reputation for getting around the anti-kickback laws. For sure, this client had our brand completely wrong. In my career, I've specifically dedicated time to studying, writing about, and as a law professor and then medical school professor, teaching about ethics. Well, finally, after a couple of rounds of the client insisting and adding, is there any way to get paid to give the referral, I said, well, make sure you have a suitcase and use unmarked bills. Now, the joke went over the client's head, so I had to be very clear that this was meant in a humorous way. And it was a rare occasion for me to say it like that. But it's just like saying, don't go rob a bank. It seemed like the only way to get the message through for this client. I'm not even sure it got through, but that was not a client that our firm would retain on a long-term basis. For all I know, they're still out there looking for that lawyer who can give them the workaround. One of the risks with anti-kickback law is that enforcement can attack from so many different angles. We talked about kickbacks, and sometimes there's a prohibition against splitting fees. There's a third very large pothole to worry about, and that is the prohibition against patient brokering. Who wants to broker patients? It sounds awful. Well, Florida is one state with an express prohibition against patient brokering, but California also prohibits making referrals for profit. Now, even if addiction centers, for example, are outside the corners of Health and Safety Code 445, judges can always apply the spirit of the law. Sometimes they talk about the policy behind the prohibition. And of course, the federal U.S. Department of Justice has also found ways to prosecute so-called patient brokering, such as clinical labs involved in urine drug screening fraud. Such prohibitions can also extend to marketing companies hired to market on behalf of a medical clinic or practice. For example, California Health and Safety Code 11831.6 prohibits giving or receiving anything of value for referring people to an alcohol or drug abuse recovery and treatment center. On the federal side, the relatively new SUPPORT Act includes a provision that similarly prohibits the knowing and willful solicitation, receipt, payment, or offer of remuneration with respect to patient referrals to recovery homes, clinical treatment facilities, and certain laboratories. There's a lot to digest. The safest way might be, for example, to compensate people on a flat fee per hour basis. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, click on the link below, cohenhealthcarelaw.com/contact to send us a message or book an appointment. We look forward to working with you soon. And now,